Hello and welcome to the Arsenal Bite Size podcast. We're here on Tuesday lunchtime for the Man City preview, the biggest game of the season so far. I'm joined by my co-host Clayton at ClaytesAFC on Twitter, and I'm of course FPL Nima. So we've quickly recovered from the doom and gloom of Sunday and from the review episode of the Everton match, and I think I'm quite excited going
In
into
Brentford
tomorrow.
one, right?
Yeah, sorry, Brentford. I just feel like we've been robbed in every
Everton's
game
still
this
in your
season.
mind.
Every game is in my mind. But I feel like this is obviously a huge game. And I think I'm gonna have issues sleeping tonight, just kind of thinking about it. But I just kind of want this match to go ahead. It's like a blockbuster thriller tie.
Yeah.
I can't wait, man. But how are you feeling? Close to kind of, I guess, is it 24? No, maybe like 30 hours out from the match.
Yeah. I'm excited. I'm very excited. I think I was similar in terms of like the doom and gloom, and it wasn't doom and gloom in terms of like, oh, season's over. It was just frustration in that it was two winnable games against Everton and Brentford that we slipped up against, right? But now that I've put that behind me and the VAR stuff is still ongoing and it's still an issue, but I'm just like, do you know what? It's done. Like, there's nothing we can do about it, as shit as it is. And like, it is fucking jarring when you hear about the points, like you just said to me before, right? What was it? If things had gone our way, we'd be 12 points ahead or something going into this game.
Yeah. So the first time I've seen it, I recommend anyone in the chat who's not read this. I'm going to try and copy paste it into the live chat for you now. But it was a Sky Sports article, and it looked at all the decisions at United, Southampton, Everton, Brentford, and it just kind of said, obviously some of those games, like the decisions that didn't go our way, were earlier in the match. So it's hard to know how those games would have ended. But especially with like this one against, Brentford, and that's clearly points robbed rather than points dropped. With the other games, it went on to say, you can't predict fully, like, would it be 4 points ahead, 6, 7, 8? But we have been robbed, basically. And then I think the thing that collates, that I connect to it, is we have the second most touches in the opponent penalty box, over 700 of them.
I've seen this, yeah.
And we have one penalty. One goddamn penalty.
It's right, we're saving it. We're going to cash in tomorrow, get 5.
Yeah, so, obviously we've had 2 apologies so far this season from PGMOL. Arteta said they're not going to appeal it. Both Brighton and Arsenal got the apology sent through. They both kind of brushed it off and said it is what it is. We're focused on the next game. I'd like to think that these guys, beyond just the apology and the robbed points so far, that maybe with the home crowd hopefully being in Cauldron tomorrow, like maybe, just maybe, they'll give us some of these soft calls that everyone else seems to get, because we're just not getting them right now. Like I was talking about the Grealish penalty, on Sunday, like looks like he just tripped himself. The De Bruyne penalty before the World Cup, got shot by a sniper, wasn't touched by anyone. They've had 7 penalties for comparison, right? So yeah, like I would like to see some of that variance or misfortune. I'd like to not call it corruption. I'd like to call it variance and misfortune. I'd like to see it kind of correct itself.
Human error, the famous phrase we're seeing.
I think that's the most frustrating part, because with the subjective decisions, I can live with those where it's a referee's subjective decision. But where it's like you have not done your job, like you have literally objectively failed to do your job correctly, like either drawing lines in the Brighton one from the wrong player, or not drawing lines because you spent too long on the first decision. Like, those are just objective mistakes. Now, if that was one of us in our jobs, we would be sacked.
Booted, right? Yeah.
Yeah, we would be sacked. So I really hope that this emergency summit happening leads to Lee Mason's sacking. I'll put that out there right now, because this guy has been a thorn in our side from back in the day. Like, I've seen Wenger quotes from 2016 cussing the guy out for being incompetent. Like, I've seen quotes all the way back from 2012, 2011 with our players cussing him out. Like, he quit being a referee last year to go to VAR. And this season alone, they say he's made 6 objective mistakes in VAR so far.
This is exactly why, like, it is unjust and it's so jarring to hear and try and make peace with it. But I think if you drive yourself mad over something you can't control, you'll go insane. Like, and I think this is what I'm just like, okay, as shit as it is, it's done now. Like, put it behind us. Like, there's going to be other cock ups later on in the season. Focus on what we can control, which is the level of our performance, and it's still in our own hands. Is it 5 points clear, 6 points clear, game in hand?
If we win, yeah. So if we win, we'll be 6 points clear with an extra game. So it's a big 6 pointer, man. Like either we go out tomorrow level on points and they're ahead on goal difference, or we go into it 6 points ahead.
Yeah, City won, didn't they? So yeah, they've narrowed it
Yeah.
down. Yeah, we've got the game in hand. But what I'm trying to say is control what we can. Like, it's normal to get aggrieved by the decisions, but me personally, just I don't want to dwell on it too much because I think
Yeah.
as shit as it is what it is. And I'm just like, fucking, let's go in tomorrow, all guns blazing. Use that as like a narrative to push ourselves and get ourselves fired up, the kind of us against the world mantra, and just go do what we've been doing this season. Like, the last two games were a case of like the opposition and the sort of low block strategy. We're not going to come against a City team that do that, in my opinion, anyway. You never know, but I highly doubt it. I think if they come to play and we go toe to toe, like, you remember in the FA Cup. I can't remember if we did a preview for that, but you were saying like you were looking forward to that as like a benchmark of where we're
Just
at.
to see where
Thi-
we're at compared to last year.
This
Yeah.
for me is the benchmark.
This is
Like,
the true benchmark. Yeah.
yeah, so I'm looking forward to seeing what we can do. And my feelings aren't that of nerves. Mine's just fucking excitement. Like, it feels like accumulation of small micro habits and processes that have been formed to come together to build like this elite team we're watching. And I hope we can just stamp that authority down tomorrow evening.
Yeah, so let's go straight into like what we think the lineup might look like then, because I think that's kind of the question in everyone's head. I see the question marks are still there, obviously, on the left wing and right back. So for the podcast listeners, we're going to kind of, I guess, debate that right back position between maybe Ben White and Tomiyasu, and then the left wing position between Martin and Trossard. I think we're both pretty confident of the rest of the lineup with Ramsdale in goals, Saliba, Gabriel, Zinchenko at the back, Partey, Odegaard, Xhaka in the mid, and Nketiah and Saka up top. So I do think that is likely. I just want to comment before we talk about the left wing and right back is just on Nketiah. So one thing I think I heard it on Arsenal Vision. I think it was Clive was talking about this, and he was saying, how many games has Nketiah actually played like at first team level, like 90 minutes at this intensity, like in a row, like 7, 8,
Yeah.
and when we started the restart around kind of the 17th fixture, and now we're going to like game week 24. He was all guns blazing against Tottenham and United. He was doing the stuff Jesus does with hold up play. He was really showing other elements to his game. And part of me does wonder if he is just like, we're relying on him, someone who's not had to do this before, to play like 3 times a week. He even played against Oxford, right, in the cup. So it's like he's literally just playing every game, and it's in a title challenge. So I do feel that maybe like we are wearing him out a bit. And I don't think tomorrow is the game to do this. But the reason I want to discuss him is I would love to see a game where we try kind of Trossard as a false nine up top with Martinelli on the left wing. And that's just something that's been creeping into my thoughts a bit. I don't think this City game is the one to try. But the reason I say this is that we talked about blueprints last time and
Yeah.
teams, doubling up on our wingers and putting free midfielders to block our midfield and disrupt it. So it just feels like we've played every team in the league so far. They generally know where our biggest threats are, and they are working to nullify them. Now, not every team's capable of nullifying them, you said, and that is right. But I would like to see us like have a few other options and different styles, like just variations of what we have now. And I think part of that is just the reason I wanted to bring this up is because we spent so long talking about maybe Martinelli needing time out the limelight that we've never really thought about like what about Nketiah? And this is no slight on him at all. It's just my thinking out loud. And it was
Yeah,
something that
interesting.
Clive said that really I hadn't thought about it in that way. And so that was just something I wanted to be open-minded about. And
Yeah, it's
now
very
I don't think
interesting.
we'll
I mean,
see it tomorrow, right?
no, it's an interesting thought. I'm personally not there at all with that. I think Nketiah, I think that thought process has only come out because of the type of opposition we played against. I think no one was kind of saying that after Spurs or Man United because he had the space to do what he did best, right? I agree on, I think as a potential solution, like a Trossard false nine in a different type of game, yeah, maybe that works best. But I think that's more of a tactical thing for me rather than him maybe needing a breather personally.
Yeah, so I think I say breather, but that's wrong. I think it's more about we just like say in a match like on the weekend, he was dropping deep, and like we've said it before, like they don't really swap zones as much, like as when
Yeah,
Jesus and Martinelli were there. And I think that if you had like a Trossard, he would swap zones more with Martinelli to get him central, and then he'd also be very good on that left wing. Now I know I saw Nketiah did try it a bit more when Martinelli tried to play a bit more centrally last game, but generally it felt that Nketiah, out of all the games so far, that was one of the ones where I felt he was dropping deep, but like he can't do what a Jesus would do there, where he'll collect it deep, dribble past two players, cause chaos, and lay it off. And I think
yeah, and
there's
yeah,
just different players, and I think like I'm so happy for Nketiah, and he's done incredible so far. But I would love to see us not be so kind of predictable, is what I'm getting at. So that's why in certain matches, I'd love to see that kind of tactical tweak where the opposition might prepare for one game state and we just show up with a
we just
completely different
yeah.
tactic. Yeah.
Yeah, on a tactical front, I can definitely see that in like against the low block where you need to mix up the predictability. I think it was just more like the thought process that he's never been relied upon for like several games, and like, I don't personally buy into that.
I just think
But
he
yeah,
looks knackered, to be honest. Because, like,
see,
honestly,
I
like,
don't at
when
all.
has he played 90 minutes a week, like 3 times a week? Like, this is the first time in his career, and I don't think it's the minutes that I'm getting at. For me, it's more
It's
with
like the
the title
mental
challenge.
fatigue.
Yeah, so it's the mental fatigue of like you are being expected to lead the line at that age in a team challenging for a title,
I think
playing
people
week in
overstate
week
that
out.
way too much personally. Like no
Mhm.
one's talking about that with Saka and stuff. Like I personally think people go overboard with stuff like that when things aren't clicking,
When
people look
things
for
don't go our
any
way, yeah.
sort of thing to latch onto. Like I personally don't buy into that at all. But
Now, I'm glad we had the
yeah,
discussion though, because I did think you might think differently, and that's why I wanted to bring it up and get ahead of it. But so then going back to if we then assume that obviously Nketiah does start, so we kind of forget that. Um, we want to now talk about the left wing, obviously, with Martinelli, Trossard potentially, and the right
yeah,
back position. I just want to shout out a few people before we do that. Obviously, we're
yep,
10 minutes in. Just say a quick shout out to Bungle, who's tuning in from Tokyo. So he's
nice one, mate.
able to join us live because of the time zone for once. We've got Pontus Johansson as well. He's not very happy about us being a bit late going live. Shout out to Blue Danube Joe as well, another regular. And nice to see you, Ben. So Ben Ackle Marks, new subscriber, and he's also a
Nice one.
fellow Gooner. So good to see you, Ben, and
Welcome in.
welcome. And yeah, put your questions in the chat, guys, as we go, and we'll star them so we can come back to them at the end in the Q&A. But yeah, let's talk about these positions. I don't know, like, if you want to say anything on who you think will start, but I guess my main takeaway was that in the review of the last match, I think we both agreed that we felt Ben White had improved. He'd obviously had a few dips, and I thought
Yep.
he looked much better last game. And then Martinelli as well. I just think this is the kind of game that suits him, where there will be
Yeah,
chances to get him
me
behind.
too.
So I'd be shocked if he didn't start this one, especially after the early sub. I would be
Yeah,
very shocked.
completely. Oh, so for what it's worth, I don't think the early sub was like resting him for today.
Oh no, it wasn't resting.
But
No.
but
As in, like now that he's also not had those extra minutes,
yeah,
and this is the perfect game for him in terms of the way that City will attack us too, to leave
yeah,
space for him in behind.
I agree. I completely agree. And he's done like if we assume it's Cole Walker there, he's done very well against him. Like, do you remember last year that he caused them a lot of trouble? And even in the cup, like I know Trossard did well, but Martinelli came on and did very well, and again
He
gave
looked very good
Walker
in the cup, yeah.
some problems. So yeah, I'm well, it sounds like we're both in the same wavelength there. Quite bullish on Martinelli starting. And then right back, yeah, I know we've both touched on like, could it be a case where Tomiyasu comes in as that specialist 1v1, like big game tactical decision? I think it will be White again. I honestly think that a lot of fans are being so caught up in like the Brentford and Everton results, and City aren't going to set up like that. I think Arteta is going to use tomorrow as a chance to like this team, like the whole team, forget individuals, the whole team has delivered for him this season. And I think he's going to go in tomorrow and just treat it as like a, yeah, I think he's just going to go in and say, let's play our game. He'll be wary of City and where they can hurt us and stuff like that. But I honestly think he's just going to go with his tried and tested team that have delivered for him 95% this season. And that's why I think Ben White will get the nod again.
Yeah, no, and I think especially like if he'd looked, as poor last game as he had in the few before, I'd be a bit more concerned and leaning towards maybe Tomiyasu starts.
Yeah,
But
me
it
too.
just felt like there was a little bit of a resurgence in him, and I think that was needed. So
I
I
just want
think
him
he
to
maintains
improve
his
his
place.
deliveries in the final third. That's it. I feel like that's one area he can
Yeah, it
really
was
improve.
frustrating, wasn't it? It felt like we were just kind of lofting in these crosses to the back post, but then this was against a team that had three centre backs who were all giants.
Yeah, they were all like 6'2" plus, right? But yeah, that's a
Yeah.
tiny point. But yeah, so sounds like we're both on the same page for the lineup then.
Yeah, exactly. So I think we go with the seventh game in a row now with the same lineup is our thinking in the Prem. Let's look at Man City. I think there is a lot to be talked about here, just because I can see obviously you've got the lineup from the
Yeah, good
cup
luck trying
game
to
where
predict.
yeah, so the cup game obviously they played that system where Lewis is the inverted fullback sitting next to Rodri. They had a back three against us of Aki Akanji Stones. Stones is currently injured. Ortega was in goal instead of Edison. They had Mahrez right wing, Grealish left wing, Gundogan and De Bruyne in the middle with Haaland up top. Now, they made a very interesting change against Villa on Sunday. And I'm now starting to worry that they've just timed this to perfection for Laporte
Yeah,
and Diaz,
me too.
probably their best defenders, to just be straight back in ahead of playing us, which I don't really like. So just for the podcast listeners, they played Walker, Diaz, and Laporte in the back three against Villa. And Bernardo Silva played a role he's never played for them, I don't think. I saw someone describing it as like he basically played the Zinchenko role, but from the opposite starting position. So he
Yeah.
starts up top and then goes back into wing back rather than start a wing back and go into the top. So they called it averted CM, not
Okay.
inverted, averted, EVER. So
Football's
apparently that's a
going mad,
word.
isn't it? With, like the
Yeah,
next
like who
tactical evolutions and stuff.
these tactical evolutions are crazy, but I think when you look at it, like obviously Lewis has been doing a great job in that role. He's their only fullback that can play kind of an inverted role. But if you're playing Arsenal, do you put Lewis there again, or do you go for Bernardo Silva, probably one of your best players over the last few years, who is super technical and like this was basically a all-out attack kind of formation, you can say, because
Yeah.
you have Rodri in the middle with Bernardo Silva protecting him, but also he starts in the attack. He only really comes to wing back when it's off the ball to defend. On the attack, they had Mahrez, De Bruyne, Gundogan, Grealish, Haaland, and Bernardo.
Yeah.
That is insane. That's three centre backs and Rodri, and then everyone
And
else is
then
an
boom,
attacker.
go for it. So this is
It's
where like
actually scary.
I can't make up my mind on if he'll do that or not, because if he does that, I think I back us to this sounds crazy, but I back us to manage their forward unit. I really do. I think that Gabriel and Saliba, the way they cover acres and distances and stuff, and then you've got Ben White tucking in when he needs to, Party proactively stopping transitions and stuff. I really think we would have more, not more than enough. I think we'd have enough to handle that. Like I think they'll score, obviously, but I do think I have faith in us to be able to handle that. And then why I think that may benefit us in transition, I think we could fucking murder them. I think teams have been able to play through City with relative ease this season. And yeah, I think their defense can be got at. But why you kind of said exactly how I feel, like they kind of stumbled back into their best players on the pitch at the same time. Like, I think that's what the Planet FPL Man City correspondent and James, so I think his name's
Because they would
Johnny.
all want Laporte and Diaz to play,
But
right? Because I
he
listened
was
to their
saying
clash
exactly
of the
that.
correspondence
Yeah, he
about
was
that
saying
game.
like just stick your best players on the pitch and kind of let it deal with itself. And I feel like that's kind of what he's done now.
They've not played much
Yes.
this season, right? Diaz and Laporte. I
No.
understand they've been injured and stuff, but like obviously that Aki Akanji back line and Stones eventually as well. I think with Stones out, that's a positive for us. But what worries me is that up until this game on Sunday, Bernardo Silva was primarily used as a sub, and he was like,
Yeah.
if he did start games, it would be on the right wing instead of like a Mahrez. And I think what he's stumbled into on Sunday with this new formation or style and setup is that he can get Gundogan, Silva, and Mahrez all on the pitch,
All
whereas
yeah.
before he couldn't. It would always be Gundogan and Mahrez, and then Mahrez would have to drop if Bernardo played because Lewis would be the one playing in CM. So he's kind of managed to get what you just said, his best players on the pitch, and that's just in the midfield and attack. Then you go to the
Yeah.
defense. You suddenly have Diaz and Laporte back.
But this is This is
Like,
where, although they've got DS and Laporte, that doesn't worry me. I honestly think, because if you look at, okay, so we're looking at the names, right? We're looking at the three
yeah,
names. But if you actually watch the game and you see the fucking spaces and distances that are there, I can tell we can fucking murder them if we get in the right areas, honestly. And that's why I'm weary. I'm not sure if he will go for this system or not, because I think if he goes for that, you know how we always talk about us, like we're a high risk, high reward team with the way we push up and the areas we occupy, and like we let Zinchenko go. That's their kind of version of high risk, high reward. Like they'll go
yeah.
and try completely suffocate teams and play in their final third. But can they do that against us? I'm not so sure. So part of me thinks like if he doesn't go with this, I think he'll go with like a flat back four and kind of get Ake in there, because I think, and then have Ake, Laporte, Diaz, and Walker, because then it's more of a conventional back four. You nullify someone, well, you try to nullify someone like Saka. Honestly, mate, if they go with this, I'm worried about us in defence, but at the same time, I
It
back us
gives us
because what I've seen.
opportunities on the
I
counter as well.
honestly
Yeah.
think in transition we could fucking murder them. I really do. So
So I think
personally,
Bungle
I hope they
agrees
go with
with
this.
you. I think Bungle
Pardon?
agrees with you of the back four. So and I think he will go for a back four with Aki, Diaz, Laporte, and Walker for what it's worth. And part of the reason will be to have Aki there to stop Saka. Aki is one of their tallest players. They'll want him for the set pieces to defend them. They'll want him to be there to match Saka for pace and for power.
Yeah,
Like, so I do feel that that is more likely than it would seem a bit wild leaving kind of Bernardo Silva to drop into fullback off the ball to defend against Saka. That
that's
seems a bit
exactly.
wild.
Yeah, like, and you wouldn't put it beyond him to go with that, right? The other thing, right, my a potentially like unpopular opinion of mine. I don't buy into the hype on Rodri as much as other people. I think when pressed, he makes a lot more mistakes than people kind of acknowledge. And I think everyone just kind of, because he's technically, like, he's aesthetically pleasing on the eye with his technical ability and he's Spanish, like he's given the ball away quite a few times that have led directly to goals. And I think if they go with this formation with like Odegaard, Xhaka, Party, the way they're positioned so cleverly, I really think we get like this game for me will be like it's again another cliche, but it will be a midfield battle, and then I think whoever regains and retains the ball in midfield then sets up the counters and the transition. I think it will be decided there, and if they go with this, I back us. I really do back us. If it's the
It's a
conventional back
shame that it
four,
might be a back four. Yeah, that is a
if
shame.
they do go with that, then I think it'll be a bit more of a chess match, and it'll be very fine margins, and
I think
they'll
then the
be
game will be made on the substitutes. So like when like either manager notices some kind of vulnerability and tries to change the game because it's too, closely contested. I think if they've got a back four, I do see this kind of turning into a chess match, as you say, and it becomes a battle of tacticians rather than
yeah.
necessarily just like us playing our best football and that's enough. Like it will be very fine margins if they play back four. I think it's like they are, one of the best teams in the world at the end of the day, no matter
Yeah,
what
of
anyone
course.
says. So this will be exciting.
But so
I'm
are
gonna
we.
I'm just gonna take Joe's question now rather than at the end because it's related to what
Sure.
we're discussing, and then we'll go to score predictions as well. So obviously Joe asks like, what will the role of De Bruyne be against Arsenal? And then Delia also asked a similar question about what will be KDB's role, period. And from an FPL
I've
point of view, obviously he's been blanking every week.
so I think high, like very high, like second striker pressing aggressively. I think that's the thing I've seen in this system. Like from an FPL perspective, like I think it's just, yeah, he's been quite unlucky to be honest. But from a tactical thing, I think Haaland will kind of be the main man leading the press, and De Bruyne will be not far behind him. I think one of them will go for like Gabriel, one of them will go for Saliba and try block the passing lanes for us to build out from the back. And then as a result, if they regain the ball, they've got their two best attackers like right high up the pitch, right? But that's for me where I trust us so much on the ball from building out from the back. Like you hear it in the stadium, like some of the older fans like groaning, like, "Oh, what are you doing?" This, that. I want us to keep doing this because I think if we can bypass them, we are in. Like I really believe that. So yeah, to the point, I think that's what De Bruyne's role is going to be. What about you?
Yeah, no, I agree. I do think that just on the FPL side, I'll comment. I do think that just from a kind of 12.4 million asset, he has obviously underdelivered.
Oh
Him
yeah,
and
of
Salah,
course.
they have a few points between them. Neither of them have done amazing in terms of returns since the restart in game 17. I think if you still have De Bruyne now, for me, that's just an easy switch in game week 25 to Salah for the double game week. Personally speaking, I just think with Mahrez at the moment, if he starts games, which he has been, and I know that's not always the case, he just looks so much more of a goal scoring threat than De Bruyne. De Bruyne has, I think, 3 league goals this season. Where he's been dominating, he's on 12 assists or something already. So, yes, he will continue to create lots of chances, but for 12.4 million, do you want the guy creating chances, or do you want 7.7 million, the guy who's like an electric winger getting in the box? And
Yeah.
he was their top goal scorer last season, Mahrez, before Haaland arrived, and he's still pretty great. So my kind of thing is, I am a little bit worried just before we move on to kind of the score prediction. I just want to comment on Mahrez specifically and the form he's found himself in lately. It does worry me that he's going to be on the wing where Zinchenko's playing as an inverted fullback, kind of leaving Gabriel on his own with maybe some support from Xhaka or Partey. That worries me because my question is, like, do we think that Zinchenko, from a 1v1 defending point of view, if he has to run back off the ball to protect the ball in, is Zinchenko going to do enough? I don't know. Or are we going to then rely on Martinelli to go back there and do a lot of defensive work against Mahrez? Is Martinelli's job going to be to go up and down the pitch with Mahrez all day long? Because that's kind of my thinking, because I'm not sure if Zinchenko could do that on his own.
No, I agree, but I think this is where you take it a level higher and you rely on the system to kind of eradicate that issue, right? So like that's why we press high and aggressively as a team. It's to avoid them getting into those areas. And I think should he get into I think what we'll see tomorrow, I think Xhaka will play a slightly deeper role. And this again, it encourages me for Martinelli, because then I think Martinelli will have the space to kind of do his own thing. I think he's been so bunched up and isolated, but with the wrong support network around him. I think this game will suit him better, where he'll be isolated, but because of City and the way they come forward and play, he'll actually be isolated in areas
in
where
space
he can
as
do
well.
something. Yeah. And so that, like, to the actual question and to your point, I think it will be the system that we look to kind of alleviate that issue, really, and we'll look to press high and aggressively. And if Zinchenko is left 1v1 against Mahrez, of course, that's a fucking issue. But
because, he's just got like a 6'5" Haaland waiting for the cross in the box.
Yeah,
like.
but this is where it's like, okay, let's go with a scenario where he is isolated. It's 1v1, Mahrez v Zinchenko. Gabriel will be there, Xhaka will be deeper there, Saliba's there, White will be tucking it. Like, it's not as simple, in my opinion, as it's just 1v1, Mahrez
And then
will
he's
skin.
through, yeah.
Yeah, like, of course, like, Mahrez is absolutely ridiculous, just shifting it onto his left, boom. But I think we have got things in place that can help nullify it. Yeah, it's going to be classic when he scores now. But
all right, let's go to our predicted score then. I think this is going to be really interesting. As the listeners know, we've yet to predict a
we've
loss
been
this
shite
season.
the last couple of weeks.
We've gone down from 84% correct outcome all the way down to 76% now.
Yeah,
we're dropping like flies here. I think I have like 3 correct scores and you have 2 correct scores or something across the season.
You've got 4 and I've got 3.
4?
Yeah.
Okay, fine, 4. It just feels worse because like we've just been getting them so wrong recently. What do I think about?
Do you want me
match?
to go? Because I've got a bumper one.
Yeah, you go. Yeah, you go.
3-2 to the Arsenal. I think it's going to be a fucking firecracker game tomorrow, and I think there will be elements of it that are like a tactical chess match, but I think they can be bloody hurt in transit. Like, I don't think defensively they are at it at all, and I think we can fucking kill them in period. Problem is, I think they can do the same to us. I don't think they can kill us. I think they will just have enough quality where they create a couple of high quality chances that they'll take. But I honestly think there will be I think it will be 50-50 in terms of moments where teams have the majority of the ball in dominance. I don't think it will be like Arsenal dominating for 80 minutes or City dominating for 80. I think it will be 50-50 in terms of both teams taking it in turns. And I think the moments where we have our turn, I honestly think we can cut through them. I really, really do tomorrow. I don't think they're right defensively at all. So I'm going for a monster 3-2. 3-2 win to us.
That's a big prediction. As Delia says, oof, what a score, Clayton. So we have a bungle 2-1 to the Arsenal, Pontus is worried about a 2-1 defeat.
Boo!
No, to be fair, if there was a game I would predict a defeat in, this City away or Liverpool away would be up there in the list.
Yeah.
But just because I do think that this match will suit the likes of Martinelli and Saka a lot more in terms of finding space isolated on the transitions. And you are right. Their defense, when they've been pressed this season, they are culpable of making a few mistakes. I don't think we can keep a clean sheet here. I reckon I'm with Bungle with a 2-1 to the Arsenal, but
Okay.
like I would have said 2-2 draw, but I want to try and be optimistic. I don't want to, put bad energy into the world ahead of tomorrow. So I'm going to keep believing we can win.
Okay, so what's your give your optimistic score and then what's your actual score prediction?
So optimistically, I'll be going for 2-0 Arsenal. I'll be honest. I'll be like, we're going to keep the clean sheet. We got them. They're locked. Realistically, I think if we win, it's going to be like a 2-1. I just, yeah. I guess, so that's my prediction. But then now just a comment generally on the game before we go. So
what am I putting down? 2-1?
2-1, yeah, 2-1.
Okay.
Now, just from what we want, what we predict, whether we're optimistic, pessimistic, those are all one thing. But then it's about what is enough in a title challenge. That's a different question I have, which is unrelated to the score prediction. So this is more about what do we need from this game? And I guess the answer is to not lose. I know a lot of people have been saying this is now a must-win game. So that's the last topic I wanted to discuss with you before we head off in the next minute or two is, do you believe that based on our last few results, that this has now become a must-win game in a title challenge? Or is it that it's a must-not-lose game? And if we were drawing and it was the 90th minute, would you want us to protect that because you think not losing is enough? Or would you go and risk it all for that biscuit of the 2-1?
Yeah, that's interesting. Do you know what? I haven't really thought of it that way at all. I think I've just kind of been excited to see us go play our football and see what comes of it. And I am confident that we can win. I think if we play our football and City come out and play theirs, I am confident that we can get a result and win. In terms of the actual,
like the hypothetical though, so draw is 90th minute. Do we push ahead and risk it all?
I think it's a must not lose rather than a must win. Personally, I still think
rather than them being level on points with us with the game in hand we have, just keep that gap as it is.
The ball's still in our court. I think there will be games against low blocks that we're going to struggle with, but I back Arteta to come up with a solution. We've got Jesus coming back soon.
Hopefully
still
Smith
think,
Rowe as well.
Exactly. Yeah, fucking hell, forgot about him. He'll be massive in those sort of game states. I still firmly believe City will drop a few more points unexpectedly than people think. And so for me, it's absolutely just maintain that little buffer room still, keep it in our hands. And that's what I think it's more must not lose. And if it's 90th minute and it's 1-1, 2-2, whatever, protect that. Just don't lose. Don't give them the advantage of gaining any more points than we can tomorrow. For me.
No, I think I tend to agree. I see it as a must not lose as opposed to a must win. I don't
want to start from minute 1 like that.
Oh, no. This is like if we need to manage the game and it's coming to the closing minutes, don't send everyone up and then be done on the counter and lose with the point we had. Like, don't let them narrow that gap like that. Delia does make the point that it's at home, it's a must win. I think only Newcastle and another 2 teams in Europe haven't lost at home yet this season. So we are doing quite well in the sense that we've literally not lost at home in the league yet this season. So that would be a real gut punch if we were to lose that game of all games tomorrow at home. That would kill me inside, I think. All right, let's go to the wrap up. Is there anything you want to say before we go?
I pray, like I said, the atmosphere against Brentford was shocking. Like, I pray that anyone who's lucky enough to have a ticket there tomorrow, fucking bring your A game, man, because the Emirates has been a cauldron this season. It has been an absolute fortress, and a lot of that is down to the crowd. Like, the crowd has been absolutely brilliant this season, and I get there's nerves and stuff, but come on, man, none of us actually thought we'd be here in the summer. So, like, forget the nerves, just bring your A game, be excited, and I think tomorrow, just fucking go for it. Like, we've worked so hard and dealt with so much shit, like, in terms of narratives and stuff. I think tomorrow for me is a huge opportunity to just slam ourselves and like announce to the world, like, we're here and we're here to stay, sort of thing. So I just want us to play our game, go and enjoy it in a weird way. I know that sounds mental, but yeah, if you're lucky enough to be there, please sing with your fucking heart out. And if you hear me on the pod on Thursday and I can speak, tell me off, because I've not done my job as a fan in that ground.
Yeah, I think especially after the kind of the apologies from PGMOL, I do hope that galvanizes the crowd and the injustice of the robberies that have happened to us. I hope that's enough to shake nerves and go into this game. I think the fact that we know, I think with the last game, Brentford, we kind of maybe considered ourselves favourites where some of the nerves come into it. Whereas with this, we probably consider ourselves the underdog on paper. So being the underdog and being robbed by the association of referees, I think that might be
Siege
enough
mentality.
to get the crowd to go exact. That is what I want to see, a full-on siege mentality tomorrow.
Come on.
And then continuing into the rest of the season. So we're going to get out of here. Just a quick couple of shout-outs to some people who tuned in. Man. I'm so excited. So William as well, who predicted 1-1. Good to see you here live, mate. Sankalpa, our friend from the Arsenal chat, has joined.
Ah, nice one.
Unfortunately, he's joined just as we head out. So if you do manage to watch the video on demand once we finish the stream and you have any feedback, we would appreciate that. But yeah, back the team all the way, 94 minutes tomorrow. We're going to go for it. So thank you everyone for tuning in. If you enjoyed it, if we made you laugh or smile, if you found it entertaining, please hit that like button. And if you're new to the channel, please subscribe to help us get to the 150, which I think we're just a couple away now. So thank you all for tuning in live with us this lunchtime. And we will be back, to review this fixture on Thursday evening. Yes, I think we're aiming for about 7:30.
Arsenal. Come on.
The Arsenal. Come on, you Gunners. And we'll see you all on Thursday.